Welcome to another In Wheel Time podcast.
.com.
It's the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Coming up, our go-to gal for auto stats, insurance, and other fun facts, Divya Sangam.
Divya.
And later, Jeff has his feature this week, and it's about old Route 66, summertime travel. You'll want to know about that. Just ahead on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show, howdy along with Mike out of this world, Mars. We always need more Jeff Seekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad that you could join us on this Saturday. This is our new revised revision, our shift around times.
I'm grooving on it. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
Groovy.
It's our 2-hour
Video.
format. 10 to noon now we're on, so normally we'd be going off the air at this time, but we wanted to...
No, we'd be drinking right now.
We'd be drinking heavily. Yeah, that's it. Before we get to Divya, I did want to mention this, in case you didn't see it, and despite the fact that you may or may not be a Chevrolet Corvette fan. Did you hear? To Chevrolet engineers, the 2025 Corvette ZR1 sports car isn't only unthinkable, as the brand teased in promotional videos this spring, it's also the biggest step up they've ever done, according to Taj Jukter, the Corvette's executive chief engineer. The most powerful production Corvette ever packs 1,064 horsepower into a car that engineers say can perform on the track without overwhelming on the road. With the first ever turbocharged V8 engine in a Corvette, Chevy said it can directly challenge the likes of the Porsche 911 and other six-figure halo cars from import brands. It is quite the car. They haven't really made that many changes to the exterior except for some of its aero, including a spine across the back window reminiscent of the 63 split window. And it's not just for looks, it's also functional because it's got an aero factor to it. And
support, yeah.
Is the glass actually split? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
So this
Just
is
a
just
rib.
kind of overlay.
It's a rib or ridge down the back of it.
Okay.
It looks pretty cool. Matter of fact, I saw a picture of it. I'll try to go run into the house and bring it out here to you. But at any rate, it's different. It's got
Does it
a
have-
huge rear wing on it.
Oh, does it say a parachute too, maybe?
Probably.
I don't know.
220 miles an hour is what it's supposed to go. I don't want to be in a car doing 220, not unless it's on a racetrack with somebody else driving.
And a full cage and all that, because obviously it's going to have a cage.
No,
Oh,
doesn't have a cage.
we'll put a rib in it.
Keep that
That'll
in mind.
make
We're
it.
going to talk to Randy Borcherding next week, and he was at an event and saw a Porsche convertible go end over end at 199.
No.
And he's got pictures he's going to
Oh, boy.
share with us.
No, that's a little bit too scary.
Don't try that
for
at
me.
home.
All right. Divya Sangam
All right.
is with Value Penguin, among other things. It's the kind of an umbrella thing. Sonia, good morning. Divya,
Hi.
Divya,
How
it's
are
good
you
to
guys?
it's good to see you. Sorry, I was a little bit distracted. It's good to see you. How have you been?
I've been good. I'm just making sure my husband does not see that press release about the upcoming Corvette.
Oh,
Yeah.
He sent it to us.
No, he's been joking with me that he wants to buy one, and now he said it goes at 220. I don't think I would be feeling good with him driving that in New Jersey.
Well, let me.
Are you sure he's joking?
Let me just say this, that first of all, the car's not available to the public yet. It's going to be a 2025 model. They unveiled it this week because they've got to do more testing on it, and they don't want to have it all camouflaged up and stuff like that. They want it the real thing, so that's why they did the deal this
to that
week.
note, Divya, there is a black 01 Corvette possibly for sale.
Yeah.
Six-speed manual.
Six-speed manual transmission.
Very well kept, driven
Yeah.
by an old man on Sundays.
That's it. Thanks for calling
Well, you
me
do
out.
drive it on Sundays, don't
So
you?
here's why we're talking to Divya. You ready?
Yes.
Drivers now have tipped the scales, and in the age bracket thing, there's a bunch of them now over 70 years old that are on the roads. I want to know the whole story. I want to know everything about all
You got
that.
2 hours to tell us.
Yeah, so, one of the things we were looking at when we consider, factors that drive up insurance costs is age. And we know that teenagers pay a lot more for auto insurance, but older adults also pay a lot more for auto insurance. And, those rates are going up, and then we dug into the data. So drivers age 70 and older have risen 30% in the last decade, and they also make up 1 in 4 fatal crashes. So it's a very scary statistic for anyone who is in that age group or has family members in that age group.
But let me just interject this.
Yeah.
I find what is amazing to me is that the states around the 50 that we have here in the US of A, they don't put an age limit, or they don't test people when they get to 70 or 75 or 80. They don't test them. Oh, well, you haven't had any wrecks. Everything's looking good. Stamp, you've still got another driver's license. I know people, my dad was one. My dad was 90 years old and crashed a car at 2 a.m. in the morning head on into a tree because he was going bowling. I said, Dad, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no bowling alley open that I know of. Well, yeah, I know. But you couldn't convince him that it wasn't. And so I think that maybe perhaps some of the states really need to look into the fact you got to get a test to get your driver's
Senility,
license.
yeah.
What about the senility test, if you want to call it that?
I mean, it's a really good point. You know, the states that top this list are West Virginia, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Especially New Hampshire and West Virginia, they don't have these rules and regulations that require older drivers to keep retesting to requalify for their driver's license as they hit a certain age. And look, here's the thing. It's not fair to say every older driver is unsafe. There are lots of safe drivers who are age 65, 70, even 80, who I would trust on the road. It's just when you get older and you start experiencing declines in your grip strength, you know, your cognition, your reaction times, that makes it very dangerous for you to be behind the wheel and also for other drivers on the road. And so right now, it feels like the burden of care and making sure that older drivers are safe behind the wheel is on their families or on themselves. And it can be really hard if you're older, you're living in a state where there is really no other option but to drive from place to place. You can't take the bus, for example, or there is no public transit, or the public transit isn't safe, so you still have to drive. And in those cases, you know, what options are there for older drivers? So more than just older drivers being unsafe, I think the broader conversation is, are we doing more to help older drivers? Are we making our roads safer? And are we just doing more to help aging Americans?
Well, there's that, and the fact that you brought it up, you know, depending on the family to say, hey, Don, you can't drive anymore. Well, to my age group, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, to my age group, you know, it was a rite of passage to get your driver's license when I got mine at 15, you know, and now today I don't think that driving is as important as it was back when I was 15 years old,
not.
because all of our social activity is here on our cell phones, it appears, unfortunately. But so it's really lays on the family of that person that is really not capable of driving anymore and trying to take the keys away from them and sell their car or do whatever with the car. That can be a huge family disruption.
It can, and let's be honest, you know, especially if someone older is suffering from dementia or, you know, they're just fiercely independent and they don't like to be told what they should be doing. It can be really hard for families. But if the state government intervenes, if your local DMV calls you up and says, hey, you need to come back for retesting, and they say, hey, you don't qualify, then there's really very little that an older driver can do to fight that. Whereas they can definitely argue with their family members, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. I've been driving since I'm 15 or 14 and I'm safe behind the wheel. And so it's really hard for family members to convince older drivers, and even harder for an older driver to take a critical look at themselves and say, hey, I don't think I'm really safe behind the wheel, because like you rightly pointed out, it's an emotional thing.
Well, maybe perhaps one of the options would be to have a third party that once you turn a certain age, then you have to go and take a
class or a test, yeah.
Exactly. And within the class, there is a test to, are you capable of driving?
Yep.
And then it would be up to that company to notify the relatives this person is not qualified to drive any longer for whatever reason it is.
Well, first of all, you have to have an agreement of that individual, that person, to go to that class. It may take an intervention on something like that, because there's interventions for a lot of things. Now, I was interested when you said the East Coast, New Jersey and such, on the Eastern Coast. Florida comes to mind. Miami, Florida, retirement state of the world. So how does that relate? I mean, is that a driving force on some of these rates?
Definitely. Like New Hampshire and Vermont, it has a lot of older people. Florida surprisingly didn't make it very high on our list. I think a huge part of that is just a lot of people move to Florida, young and old, so it balances out in terms of the proportion of older drivers on the road. But if you dug down into Florida, some of the retirement enclaves, the cities and towns where there's a lot of retirement communities, the percentage of older drivers is a lot higher. So it definitely is a factor. And, when I took a look at the data, states like Minnesota is actually seeing a decline in older drivers. So these might be the snowbirds, the people fleeing the cold weather.
Yeah.
That are all going down to Florida.
Yeah.
They're going to Florida or Texas or wherever they're going. But, that's how it's being, that's how it is. To me, the most surprising data point was the District of Columbia having the lowest percentage of older drivers, just because, the joke is a lot of older people are in power. So I guess they're not driving themselves.
They're running limos.
Limousines,
Yeah.
And Ubers and all that.
Yeah.
Ubers and drivers, and it's a big city, so you don't really need to drive. You can get around with, an
Public
Uber
transportation.
or
Yeah.
a public transit. Yeah.
So on average, what is the increase of insurance rates because of age?
So it depends on your age, right? So at the age of 60 is when you'll pay your lowest insurance premium. So it's not that insurance companies are automatically seeing you getting older as a bad thing. It's just when you hit 70, that's when your insurance premiums go up by around 8%. But by the time you hit 80, it's going up 32%.
Holy cow.
So here's the thing. Remember, you brought up that point about having a program where you can, an independently run program where an older driver can get themselves tested.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. An insurance company could get behind that and say, hey, if you do this program and you prove to us that you're safe, we might give you a discount. So it will help offset those costs. Because when you're 80, you're probably living on a fixed income, and having your insurance premiums go up so much on top of rising insurance premiums, it's just going to be really stressful for drivers who have to manage those expenses, and then offering them discounts for being safe drivers or taking a course could actually help them and help all of us.
Defensive driving.
Defensive driving or whatever course, are their reaction times good? Or do they have enough grip strength? I mean, those are things we don't think about, but it does become an issue.
Well, the other thing is, too, is and especially with that age group, like I said, at 15, rite of passage, get your driver's license, and now I can socialize and go across town to visit my friend that moved away several years ago.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's not as important if you, if you live in a community that has a grocery store, that has a clinic, that you really don't need a car. Basically, you would use that particular venue's shuttle, if you will. We're all going to go to the grocery store one time a week, and we'll shuttle you over there. You'll have an hour, and we'll shuttle you back. If you have a complex of 100 senior citizens on a fixed income, it seems to me that would be an answer to really offset the insurance. Don't need a car.
Well, it would be one of the amenities in that facility.
And let's face fact. I mean, we didn't have Uber back in the day. We had a taxi cab that how did taxi cabs even stay in business anymore? I don't know. Because not that Uber is a whole lot cheaper for me to go from here to the airport, but it sure is more convenient because I can see where the driver is on his way to my house.
I went to high school with a guy that his dad owned a cab company in the greater Detroit area.
Does he still?
No, it's all gone. But back in the day, they were everywhere. It was
that was
the massive
way to do it.
Lorraine Cab Company.
Yeah.
He was owner of that.
Call me a cab.
Yeah. But the problem with a lot of, senior citizens and Ubers is not everyone's familiar with using their phones to book for services, or they don't feel safe putting their credit card information into the phone. It's not everyone, but I do know of older family members who are very distrustful of putting their financial information into their phone, so they would absolutely not use an Uber or a Lyft. They would either drive, even though they're 80 plus, or they would wait for someone to come and get them. So a lot of this is dependent on the kindness of others. Do I have the time to go pick up my uncle to take him to the store, or should he be driving by himself? And it just is a lot of stress.
Yeah, and what would be the way to do that? You're just not going to walk up to somebody, a relative, an elderly person, and say, "Give me your keys." I think there should be a preliminary to that. Hey, there should be discussion years before that. If you see a decline in cognitive, that brings the awareness of, we're going to have to make some decisions here in the next year, 2 years, 6 months, 5 years on taking those keys away. So I think there should be more of a way to figure out when you're going to do it and how you're going to do it. Not necessarily an intervention, but
that's what
to
it
that
amounts
point.
to.
Yeah, to that point.
So my brothers and I got together. My father started physically; he was declining. Mentally, he was there. He was sharp, and we had the van adapted. The hand controls and all that stuff. But we talked to the doctor. His doctor, Doc, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. When the time comes to say you got to give me them keys, we may need some help. He said, I got no problem with that. He said, I can do that for you, and so. Again, Dad, you got to give us the keys, or else you got to start using these hand controls. Okay, so he adapted. He used the hand controls as long as he could until it got to the point that, Dad, you got to give us the keys. You don't drive anymore. One of us will drive you in your vehicle.
There's got to be a plan for that.
Well,
either you or your brother.
My brothers, the three of us, we got together and we kind of looked at it and said, but we started that, like you say, Dad, it was progressive. Dad, you're going to have to do something here. Get hand controls or something to go that route.
And that's the way to do it.
So, Divya, where can we get more information on all this?
So you can visit www.valuepenguin.com, or you can go on Google and search for Aging Drivers Report Value Penguin, and it will be the first result.
Very good. So we can see all of your hard work.
You can see the work that was done by myself and the amazing team of researchers and analysts who work with me.
I love it. Well, it's always great to talk to you, despite the fact that you've really put a divot in my day talking about older drivers. Thank you.
I just want to make a caveat. Not all older drivers are unsafe, but when they do get to the stage where they're becoming unsafe, then I think we as family members, as a community, and even, as governments need to step up and do more to protect them.
Yeah, Dom, we need to talk after this.
Shut up.
1 out of every 3. So
Shut
it's
up.
1, 2, 3.
Divya, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
bet,
you.
Always. Thank you. Hey, the In-Wheel Time
awesome.
Car Talk show is available 24/7 through the iHeartRadio app. Just look for In-Wheel Time Car Talk. And a new daily podcast available from your favorite podcast provider. We also video stream our live 2-hour weekly show on Facebook, YouTube, and InWheelTime.com. That is from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Time. The In-Wheel Time Car Talk show continues right after this quick break.
ProAm Auto Accessories has been serving Houston's auto enthusiasts since 1984, providing world-class products for sports cars, European sedans, and American muscle. ProAm is known as the place to go to find exclusive and hard-to-find parts and accessories. ProAm is one of the very first distributors in the USA for brands such as Recaro, Redline, Momo, Corbo, and Simpson. Located in the heart of Houston's premier retail and service corridor, the Galleria area, ProAm's walk-in storefront includes an 8,000 square foot warehouse, showroom, and installation bays. ProAm not only sells parts and accessories, but also offers installation and service. ProAm is now reaching a worldwide audience through ProAm.com, taking its local reputation to the rest of the world. At ProAm Auto, you'll be dealing with a small group of professionals who truly want to help you with your automotive needs. If you don't see what you're looking for on the website, call and ProAm will lend you a hand. ProAm Auto, 6125 Richmond at Green Ridge in Houston's Galleria area. Call them at 713-781-7755. Want to feel good about something special you did for someone special? In-Wheel Time and the original Lupe Tortilla group of Tex-Mex restaurants have joined together to help a very worthy cause, God's Garage, a Christian-based 501c3 charity. We know there are lots of places and organizations out there where you can donate a car, truck, or SUV. But we're asking you, our car enthusiast family, to consider donating to God's Garage. Visit godsgarage.org and learn about its mission, the women that have been helped, how each one is screened, and about their Restore You program. A car donation is an easy way to make a difference in the lives of others. God's Garage needs good operating vehicles, but will take all types in working and non-working condition. Make your heart and soul feel good by donating your gently used vehicle and help support single mothers, widows, and wives of deployed military at godsgarage.org.
This is the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show. Thank you for joining us today. Time now for Jeff's Motor Minute.
Hey, we're going to load it up here. Give me just a second.
Well, yeah, there's no rush. Everything's fine, Jeff. Just calm down, okay? All right. This week we're going to do a special on Route 66. It is vacation time, and some people will seek out the old Route 66.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, and absolutely. This is the sort of like the before and after, the then and now is what they're calling it. So Route 66 had a major impact on American history in the 20th century. We all know that. Long before the interstates, highways were a twinkle in Dwight D. Eisenhower's eye, it connected many previously isolated western settlements from Chicago to Los Angeles for the first time. Now, this first city that we're going to talk about is called Cuba, Missouri. Back then, Cuba, Missouri intersected the Trail of Tears for long distances between the Rolla and Springfield areas. It was an area where a lot of the American Indians suffered back then during the time.
Oh, yeah.
But it has since evolved, and today, now, the town of Cuba has been designated Route 66 Mural City for its public art and features of the route's oldest continuously operated motel, and it's called the Wagon Wheel. So there's a nice little shot of that there. Our next one is Truxton, Arizona. Back then, in 1857, Congress tasked Lieutenant Edward Fitzgerald Beale with creating the Southwest's first federally funded interstate between Fort Defiance, which I think is a cool name, in New Mexico, and the Colorado River, while also testing the usefulness of camels as backpack animals in the American deserts. Now, today, Truxton wasn't much of anything until the 50s post-war car boom, and then became one of many Route 66's cities bypassed by the construction of Interstate 40 in 1979. It's very nearly a ghost town today, with fewer than 200 residents and a handful of decaying Art Deco motels. So that's one of them. I'd stay there. Albuquerque, New Mexico. We've all heard of it in the New Mexico area. Back then, another important area to Route 66 was the National Old Trails Road, cobbled together in 1910 and spanned 3,096 miles from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles. Almost all of the trails from Albuquerque to Los Angeles, previously called the Grand Canyon Route, would become Route 66. Now, there are many Route 66 sites remaining in New Mexico's largest city. On the corner of 4th Street and Central Avenue, two of the original public roads from 1926 and 1937, and following either street leads to an assortment of long-standing neon-signed motels. So that road is still there, and the intersections are still there, and you can take them both. We're going to talk about Cajon Pass, California. Cojones.
They got some cojones on them.
I'm telling you.
There's the donkey to show you.
Back then is the last significant mountain range on Route 66 to negotiate before coasting to the Pacific Ocean on the Cajon Pass towards San Bernardino. It was also used by settlers coming to Los Angeles in the 1830s. Now, today, through Interstate 15 bypass, much of the alignment in the late 60s, parts of the original automobile route can still be seen from the Cajon Pass on Interstate 15 southbound lanes north of the pass. More leisurely and indirect dirt road can be seen, and reported accessibility, high clearance area vehicles, high capacity vehicles can now take it on a four-wheel drive route. Oatman, Arizona is our next stop, and one of the most demanding stretches of Route 66 was stepped with hairpin turns through the Black Mountains and outside of Oatman in western Arizona. Motoring was dangerous even after Route 66 paved in 1938. Some of the early travelers would hire locals to navigate the stretch to avoid injury. Now, treacherous stretch of the highway still exists in the Oatman Highway, while the unincorporated village of Oatman Glory and a long pass of the decline in the mining industry since 1952 and the highway realignment. So there you have it.
Very good. I loved it. Thank you very much. Route 66 history. Hey, time now for this hour's car review.
We got it.
And Mr. Mars has a review of the Subaru Crosstrek.
Yeah, buddy.
Did it mess you up over there, Mike?
Well, no, I was
he was helping me. He was helping me.
I was lamenting that I got ahead on Jeff there. I double tapped, and anyway.
Oh, that's all right.
You do that every week, don't you?
Well, generally I'm behind and not in the front. But anyway, so we're talking about the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Sport. Now, the Crosstrek comes in the base, the premium, the sport, the limited, and the wilderness, which is new. And the sport, so the sport's the mid-trim level, if you will. Now, this is a small CUV, third generation that's of this vehicle that's been out there. And up front, you're going to find a frameless hexagonal grille, and that's part of the improved dynamics that they put into this car for this year. And it's got LED compact headlights, so they're kind of the small ones, but they've got the automatic on and off, and you got LED fog lights, you got some roof rails, you got heated side mirrors. And if you look at this car, it's got some yellow body accents. Now, some people think that was kind of put on there for shipping, for protection during the shipping, but it's not. It's actually part of the design for this vehicle. Got a power moonroof, rolling on some 18-inch dark gray alloy wheels for this trim level. And it's in the inside of it, you're going to find got heated front seats. The rear seat is a 60/40 folding seat. Got 11.6-inch multimedia screen right there in the middle of the dash. It's where you're going to find your Subaru Starlink, your nav, all your convenience controls. And it's got lighted USB A and C connections for your mobile devices in the front and for the rear seat passengers.
That's cool.
So all the controls, they're simple, they're easy to use. Got the touch screen. The touch screen, sometimes you had to kind of touch it a couple of times. But other than that, it works
That's because
great.
of your greasy fingers.
Well, that could be. Then up under the hood, now there's two engines available. We happen to have the 2.5-liter Boxer type engine. Now this is a flat type engine, 152 horsepower, 182 pound-feet. Not real big, not real fast per se, but it's more than adequate to get out on the highway or do a little off-roading in the sand and mud. CVT transmission, but it has an 8-speed manual shift mode that you can pull it down into if you want to try and control it a little bit better. This vehicle is actually properly equipped. You can tow 3,500 pounds on this vehicle. And, of course, it's an all-wheel drive. The EPA says you should get about 26 miles to the gallon in the city, out on the highway 33, and combined 29. Now, I drove this vehicle 266.5 miles, and I averaged 26.7 across that time frame.
Nice.
And again, like I say, it was an easy ride. Now, it will get a little bit firm in some cases, but you get it out on the highway, and it will roll down on the highway. Nice, steady feel, good, confident firmness feel to the steering on it. Now, the base model price, you can find one of these vehicles base, $24,995. Base trim is $29,195. Now, our as-tested vehicle is $32,601. You want something to compare it to? You could look at a Jeep Compass, $25,900. A Mazda CX-30 is $24,000. You might even could bring in the Ford Bronco Sport, which is a little bit bigger, but it's kind of that still small CUV kind of off-road capabilities, $29,795. So if you like the Subarus, this is one of them you really ought to be looking at.
All right. Thank you, sir. Today's In Wheel Time Car Talk Show is sponsored by the group of original Lupe Tortilla restaurants in Houston, Beaumont, and College Station, Gulf Coast Auto Shield, and ProAm Auto Accessories. We continue our show right after this quick break.
The original group of Lupe Tortilla restaurants will have you telling your family and friends just what the original recipe means when it comes to the best fajitas in Southeast Texas. Founder Stan Holt invites you to visit the first Lupe Tortilla near I-10 and Highway 6. Here is the original house that inspired the design of all the rest and the original charm that helped make Lupe Tortilla the go-to destination for Houston Tex-Mex. Nothing can compete with the original lime pepper marinade that everyone will agree makes Lupe Tortilla award-winning beef fajitas the best anywhere. Lupe Tortilla Katy is another location that gives you the same quality and service Houstonians have come to expect at Lupe's. It's located on 99 the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard in Katy. Find yourself in Aggieland? Head to the Lupe Tortilla in College Station. Located just around the corner from Kyle Field, it's a great place to enjoy those famous frozen margaritas before or after the game. Going to Louisiana? The Lupe Tortilla in Beaumont is on I-10, so you can't miss it. The original group of Lupe Tortilla restaurants has the best Tex-Mex anywhere, and you're invited anytime. Your car is a direct reflection of you, so don't be satisfied with color fade or a dingy, dull appearance. Get rid of those terrible automated car wash scratches. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is your Save the Paint company. John Gray and his team of detailing experts can help your cars finish without a full repaint. Searching for the real experts in window tint or windshield protection? Gulf Coast Auto Shield. Dash cams, radar detectors, Gulf Coast Auto Shield. Got a new car? Get that thing protected as soon as you take delivery. If you don't know which of the multitude of protection products to go with, John Gray will give you an honest opinion and won't sell you something you don't need or can't afford. John will help you understand the many options and pricing right on the spot. He's your guy to have your ride looking its best and protected too. See the state-of-the-art shop yourself. Free tours anytime. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is easy to get to, located just south of the Southwest Freeway on the Sam Houston Parkway. Gulf Coast Auto Shield, full service luxury car care today and online at gcautoshield.com. That's it for this podcast episode of the In Wheel Time Car Show. I'm Don Armstrong, inviting you to join us for our live show every Saturday morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and our InWheelTime.com website. Podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart Podcast, Podcast Addict, TuneIn, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Keep listening, and we'll see you soon.